Welcome back to the Modern Agency Podcast. Another week here, and we've got an exciting topic today. We're going to be interviewing Sam about his latest renovation project in Soulard. Sure, probably you guys have seen some of the content that he's put out surrounding that, but it's a beautiful project in historic Soulard, a 3-bed and 3-bath. It's hitting the market this weekend, and they've already got a bunch of traction. So, Sam, excited to talk to you about that today. Tell me a little bit about the project and how you found the property to begin with.
Yeah, so it's a cool project in general. It's a really cool house as well, 2,200 square foot, 3-bed, 3-bath. Kind of a unique layout, but gorgeous first floor. We're doing these rehabs. I like to make them, really pop. A lot of, we do real hardwood flooring, reincorporate some of the more traditional feeling of the houses. So we reused some original doors, really highlighted the 11-foot ceilings in the kitchen and master bedroom. But from a acquisition side, so when you're doing rehabs, the systems and structures that follow the acquisition are incredibly important. Now, the acquisition in itself is one of the most complicated factors. So how do you find that good deal? And once you find it, how do you get it? Okay? And so this property in Menard was listed for $160, and
on the MLS or
on the MLS.
Okay.
So a lot of good deals on the MLS. Every investor thinks that they need to go and they need to send a bazillion mailers out, or they need to have people making cold calls to them, to homeowners, to find good deals. I take a little bit different of an approach. I go direct to agents to find deals, or I find them off the MLS in general. And so this one itself was a property that had been foreclosed on, and so the bank was selling it at that point through an agent, and so it goes on the MLS. And this house had 15 offers on it, something along those lines. It had a ton of offers. And when you're working on an acquisition through a bank with a real estate agent on the MLS, they don't necessarily like something called escalation clauses. Okay, now an escalation clause, you put it into a contract and you essentially say, hey, I'm willing to pay up to X amount and beat the other offer by X amount. So in this case, it was listed for $160, and so you could have said, hey, I'm willing to pay up to $180 to beat the next highest offer by $2,000. Now, you're not able to do that, okay? And so you kind of just got to run your numbers really strategically, and sometimes it's already a good deal even if you're paying more money for it, okay? And so I just flat out offered him $190.
Wow.
So here's $190,000 cash. I'll close next week. Okay. And other folks that are kind of being stingy on the acquisition side, they might not know the real value in the property at the end of the day, or they might not have the vision behind it, and they're counting pennies on the front end, when in reality, the margins were still great at $190. All right. And so I said, you got all these offers. Does $190 get it done? And he goes, that's a good offer. Send it over. And we won and closed the week after that. Now, that first week is important because you haven't closed yet. And so you can get cash-based loans, all right? And so cash-based loans, hard money loans, or private lenders. Private lenders can really just be somebody who is a family member or a really rich friend or somebody working out of their 401k that's accessing funds there or getting a HELOC. Just depends. Now, in this case, those payments start after that. Now, they don't start until the following month. And so say if you close on the 12th, well, your payment's not going to be due for roughly like 45 days. Okay. But on that first week before closing, you really want to dial in all of your material and all of the contractors that you're going to utilize for the different tasks that are going to unfold over the following months. All right. And so we always schedule everybody out for that initial phase. And so typically you're going to start with demolition. Okay. Now, you need to get all your plans done too. Okay. So you're working with an architect. So really step one is going to be getting your architect in there, getting building plans put together, getting a scope of work put together, and then, working through that with the contractors. Okay. And so once you get building permits pulled, you're able to go in there. A demolition permit comes along with that. All right. If highlighted in the scope of work, get that work done. Then you do your framing. All right. Rough-in plumbing and electrical. And then insulate everything the proper way. Then you do your drywall after that. get a screw inspection done. So you got to get a screw inspection done, making sure you got enough screws holding the drywall up. And you can tape, mud, paint after all those different inspections have unfolded. So really, if you line it all up appropriately, have a good project manager, if got all the right subs, you can be pretty efficient at it. Now, these more kind of higher end renovations you really want craftsmen in there doing the work. They can take a little bit longer because the really good contractors are busy. Okay, so the really good carpenters, they've got other jobs going on. And so you want the right guy doing the work here. And so this project, because I'm very meticulous on these, did take about the same amount of time as I had factored in because I wanted to hit the market in April. We could have been done a couple months earlier, but I wanted to hit the market when the market's the hottest, when properties sell for the most. And so in statistics, the highest sale prices of homes comes in May. But those houses go under contract in April, okay? And so April is really the best time to list your home, all right? And so we hit the market earlier this week. Showing started 2 days ago. A lot of really good feedback on it so far, and it's been a fun project. Got a handful of other ones going on, and so it's been fun to work with.
Yeah, that's huge, man. A lot of information there. So what was your, you said you took a little bit longer on the rehab maybe than you would have needed to. What was your holding time and what was your project timeline like?
We've had it for about 5 months.
Okay. So still quick.
5 months and some change. Relatively quick. Yeah. Now it was a decent scope of work because it's a decent amount of square footage. Now, somebody had already tried to renovate this house prior to us purchasing it. And so there was some things already done. We had to go back and redo a bunch of the things they had done because they'd done them incorrectly. But we could have been done sooner, ultimately.
So that's interesting. You said somebody else had tried to rehab it, but it was sold out of foreclosure. So was that a bad flip gone wrong, got foreclosed on? Then you guys kind of picked up and undid some of the bad work and then redid work moving forward? Or do you know the story behind the property?
What the story behind the property was. I don't dig into that too much. Once we own it, it's ours, and we take over and we do the project the right way.
Yeah.
But you do see that quite often when people try to get into these rehabs and they don't manage them the right way. There's a lot that goes into it. And so if you set it up like a business and you structure it like a business and you let it unfold and you have the right people in the right chairs to take care of the process, then it can run fairly smoothly. Now, if you buy it and you're trying to do everything yourself on a house that size, or just don't have the right people doing the work, you have a handyman who doesn't really understand framing trying to frame, or you've got a guy who says he's a carpenter but he's not really a carpenter. Your projects aren't going to go the right way, and so their framer, whoever it was, couldn't frame. Right?
Okay, so you unframed and
we
then
unframed and then reframed. And so you just want to be careful before getting into any project, really, because if you are getting a loan on that and things go south,
you still got payments due.
You still got payments due, and you don't want to be in that situation.
Right.
And so you want to make sure you've got the funds for acquisition and for development on that, and you have to make sure they all go together well, and that you have the income to make the loan payments.
Yep.
And so
there's a lot more that goes into it than just what might be obviously apparent from somebody looking from a high level overview on what it takes to renovate a property, but so much of it, from what I've learned from you, is how you structure the deal and the systems and structures that you have in place to automate that process throughout the timeline that the house is being renovated. So do you want to talk to me a little bit about your process for meeting contractors, lining contractors up, doing a scope of work, and how you've automated that system to ensure success on every renovation that you do, not just, approaching every renovation like it's unique, because every renovation is unique, but you also have an automated process that's pretty systematized to make sure that's nothing missed. So tell me about that process.
So each project's a little bit different. When you're talking new construction, it's really Legos. When you build from the ground up. Now, when you're doing a restoration project of an old building, I like to highlight a lot of those old components of it. There's more interior design that goes into it. It's more than just, you're still checking the boxes, but it's more boxes to check. And so on some projects I've got going on right now, I purchase them, I walk through them, I create the scope of work, I create the material list, and I provide access to some of the subs for my project manager Now, that project manager gets paid a flat fee, and they manage the whole thing. Okay, now I give them the boxes to check inside of that, the scope of work. They get access to the architect, and my conversation with them goes, here is everything you need. I would really like to not have a conversation until it's done. Okay?
Brilliant. You got to have a good project manager that you really trust, though.
You've got to have a good project manager that you really trust, and a lot of those guys that say they're project managers, they are overworked, or they try to get the job, and in trying to get the job, they lower their amount of money that they're going to take, and then they're less motivated to get the job done once they get it.
Right.
So fair compensation, because this is a lot of work that goes into these, and your project manager, if experienced, on a rehab like 2,200 square foot on that, I mean, they should be making about 20% of project cost.
Okay.
Or if not more than that. Okay. And so when you're training a project manager as well, you want them to work inside of your systems. Okay. Because a lot of the times the systems that they might have in place might be flawed. And so you still want to have control over that project in some regard. And so with Menard in particular, I watched a lot of that project and managed a lot of that project myself. I had a project manager that helped with some of the items, but I was kind of particular on how I wanted that one to be, because I wanted it. I kind of have fun with it. All right, it wasn't just a flip, let's make some money. It was hey, I'll make this house how I want it to look if I was going to live in it. And so it was a little unique.
And part of that comes from Soulard's kind of got a special place in your heart. The architecture in Soulard, the housing style. Part of that's through mentorship that you received from Randy Medicke, right? You want to talk at all about, he worked a lot in Soulard, you work in Soulard now. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's, working with really good people is, throughout the course of our lives. I mean, even 6 years ago, I was still doing manual labor instead of starting my businesses. And so, Randy Medicke, I was digging out basements in Soulard, with 5-gallon buckets, put them in a dumpster, in order to make it, to the right depth where you can, pour a slab. Okay. And so a lot of watching projects unfold with people who had been doing it for many years and have exceptional experience, okay? And then getting to work with them for many years prior to doing these projects myself is a big key component as to why I'm able to manage these type of deals, at the not really necessarily age. Other people can do it at this age, and they've used their age as an excuse not to do it. A lot of it just comes down to the vision component of it, and being able to see what that property could be.
That's huge. So talk to me about your vision for a property. When you walk into a property for the first time and you're walking that property to see if it's a good renovation project for you, what do you see in your mind's eye that lets you know whether or not it's a good deal or not? And then what's kind of the creative process that you go through in order to plan a project, whether that be pick and finishes or even just looking at, what are the fundamental things that need to happen, whether it be plumbing, electrical, sewer.
So we're sitting in a horse barn right now from 1937.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I bought this property that we're sitting in, you've got a blank slate. Mm-hmm. Okay. Once you rip everything out, you've got square footage to work with. Okay. And so then at that point, it's really, what can I do to make this place how I'd want it to be? What can I do that make it, if it's a property I'm selling, well, then who is my buyer? What is that demographic? Okay. And what would they want? So if you're rehabbing a house or you're restoring a house in St. Louis County, it's going to be different finishes than you use in Soulard. It's going to be different finishes than you use in Tower Grove. It's going to be different finishes. Each neighborhood inside of St. Louis has a different type of person that's going to purchase that house. Okay?
It's a really good point. Yeah.
And so put yourself into their shoes for a little bit, because you don't want to do work that's not going to catch attention, not going to be desirable, because you're shooting yourself in the foot from a bunch of different angles.
Yeah. What neighborhood in St. Louis has your favorite architectural style to work with?
Oh, man. St. Louis is gorgeous architecture. I love the historical components of older houses. I love the brick, love the masonry work, love the Victorian style. I would say there's a handful of different neighborhoods. I mean, and all of them have gorgeous architecture. Some from some different time periods. I mean, Lafayette Square, Soulard, in Tower Grove, Shaw. You've got your Forest Park East neighborhoods. Got the Central West End, and then north of Delmar, the West End neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of potential over there. We have the highest price per square foot sale in that neighborhood now, which was really fun to help them with.
Yeah, that was on Clemens, is that right?
Mm-hmm. On Clemens.
That's awesome.
Over there north of Delmar.
Okay. So that's the highest price per square foot sale north of Delmar ever?
Ever.
Wow. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about what the process was behind listing and marketing that property and how you got such a high sale price for it.
So the West End neighborhood has come a long ways in the last 10 years. And highlighting its location to Central West End, and then also just how laid out that neighborhood is. You've got larger lots. You've got more space between neighbors. You've got gorgeous, beautiful homes. And a lot of them have already been restored and brought back to life. And so being able to take, our marketing and really utilize drone photography to highlight that neighborhood and how desirable it's become, because a lot of folks just take the pictures of the house and it doesn't highlight what's around it. Well, the location you live in is a lot of the times more important than the house you're living in. Okay, and so we want to highlight the key components of what makes that area desirable. And so doing that, and then also showing the beautiful architecture behind that home. And it was a gorgeous brick Victorian house. All right, and it was updated. Now there's still homes in that neighborhood of a similar square footage that were updated with bigger master bathrooms, bigger bedrooms, or intricate tile work. Now they didn't highlight the location, and they didn't highlight the key components quite well enough to get those kind of sale prices that we're getting.
Right. Now, do you think that maybe the reason why other agents overlook the location in the West End is because of that kind of negative reputation that it's had over the past 20 years and kind of this idea that it's still kind of a neighborhood that's not well invested in? And what made you shy away from that maybe negative trope of the neighborhood and gave you the idea to really highlight that as a benefit to the property?
Well, everybody's, location is a super important aspect, and there's desirable aspects to many locations. And so regardless of where it's at, we can highlight,
There's always something that ties into the location that's going to benefit a certain type of buyer.
Well, you have to look at, your buyer.
Right.
And so perception within marketing, within business, within life is so important. And people, a lot of the times, don't, they do it, they market it in a way where they're like, oh, that looks good to me. That looks good to me. But just because it looks good to you, does that mean it's going to look good to the people who are actually the buyers of this house? That's super important.
Right.
Who's your demographic?
Right.
Who is going to be receiving this and ultimately purchasing it? Well, you have to make it look desirable for them.
And when you're on a listing meeting, you talk about that with your sellers? What's the demographic of the buyer that we're marketing towards, and how are we going to present your house exactly to that buyer? Is that something that you leverage in your listing consultation? I
do, to an extent. Okay. Now I tell them, my reputation in a lot of ways kind of speaks for itself. And so I don't have to, go into the utmost detail on that every time. People, I'm going to give everybody the same service.
Okay.
Right. And I'm going to treat everybody with the utmost respect, just as if I was, in their shoes. Because if you're serving somebody in that capacity, that should be your approach every time. And so ultimately, the listing, media packages that we provide, we spend an excess amount of money on marketing that property prior to ever, completing the sale. And that's because we're that confident in the price.
Right. You tie up a lot of funds in that property being sold because you have the confidence that it's going to sell.
Yeah, I wouldn't spend my money on marketing material if I wasn't confident I could sell it.
Yeah.
That'd be silly.
Exactly.
So, we have primarily conversations around price.
Okay.
And a lot of the time, that price is significantly higher than what that seller thinks they can get. And it's funny because, I'll go into a meeting and they'll be like, oh, well, we're interviewing another agent, and they kept fighting me on my price. I'm like, well, that's because they're not doing the right things, okay? And they're scared of potentially overpricing it, which is very important. You never want to overprice a house, okay? If you overprice the house, it sits in the market, then people wonder what's wrong with it, okay? Now, if you underprice a house, sometimes, depending on location, you'll get enough attention on that property, and it's going to go up to a sale price that would be close to what you could get if you properly priced it, okay? Now, properly pricing it means that we get a good amount of demand, not too much demand. I'm shooting for 3 to 4 offers, okay? If I get more than 3 to 4 offers, that means I likely underpriced it, okay? And those 3 to 4 offers are still enough to drive that price up, okay? Mm-hmm. It creates a frenzy. It creates an urgency behind the buyers to where they're still going to go up in price, okay? And they'll still likely go up in price the same amount that if they were going to go,
competing against 11 other people, right?
Because those escalation clauses are going to put in that contract. If the price are just going to flat out offer, they might say, oh, I'm open to going 30,000 over asking, but that's really kind of where I want to be. I'm not going to go over that. And so if I price it at, or say the property's worth 200,000, okay, if I price it at 180 and get folks who are willing to go 30 over, then I sold for 210. All right, now if I price it at 190 and get folks that are willing to go 30 over, well, I sold it for 220. Okay, and so figuring out that middle number, that's not
right. And then what's the number that the buyers are anchored to as well, right? Because it's such a perceptual thing. Like they fix their mind on the list price, and they say, "I'll go 20,000 over the list price." Now, if you put the list price 10,000 higher, they're anchored to that price as the value of the property. So the psychology behind that is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, because ultimately they've got a max price in their mind that they're willing to go up to. And so putting yourself into their shoes of what's the max they're going to be willing to pay for this location, this type of home, and then pricing it in a way that gets it to that max number. Because if you underprice it, that max number is going to be lower. If you properly price it, that max number is going to be right where you want it to be.
So for Clemens, for instance, what was your strategy there? Did you come in 10, 20,000 below what the sellers ultimately wanted to get and then escalate over that? Or did you list right on the money? How did that work out in that scenario?
I wanted to get within 15,000 of 400,000. Okay. And we had a couple different options there. All right. We priced it at 375. Okay. And we drove it up 15,000. All right. Got a handful of offers, 3. Okay. And that was perfect.
So sold for 390, listed for 375, 15 over. So right on the money where the sellers wanted to be.
Yeah. Right where we wanted to be. And now you get the desirable contingencies when you go over asking price as well.
Okay. Right. So that contract that got accepted, I mean, as is, any negotiations there, any financing contingency, any appraisal?
None of that's not public information. Okay. And so it was a desirable contract. Yeah. So, great scenario for the sellers, and a lot of other scenarios like that ultimately, that are unfolding as we speak. We've got eight listings on the market right now, 3 more going on next week, including some of our renovations, but getting to help a lot of clients.
Absolutely. It's a busy spring. We've been busy. You've been busy. How many under contract right now?
14.
Let's get it.
Next month's a big month.
Yeah.
Bunch of closings next week, bunch of closings the week after.
Okay.
It's been a great market, a lot of blessings. Thank you guys for supporting the business.
Yeah, couldn't do it without referrals, right? I mean, that's how you get all your business. That's how I get my business, is referrals, past clients, treat people right. That keeps sending people back to us.
I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day on the phone. So story time. A buddy of mine that I met in traffic court. I had license plates that had been expired by 2 days. I was busy.
We know you're from St. Louis.
Got pulled over. Got a ticket, threw the ticket on my dashboard, forgot about the ticket, got a letter in the mail, went to court, gave him my $37. And inside of the courtroom, I met this guy, all right, and didn't exchange numbers with him. We chatted a little bit, Then I saw him 3 weeks later, actually, at the Armory, and just bumped into each other. Like, hey, what's up, traffic court? Yeah. And exchanged numbers at that point. Helped him buy a property a couple months later in the Central West End. Incredibly desirable deal. Found a way to kind of subdivide it a little bit, and so he's living there on the first floor for free. He covers the entire mortgage. Turned the second floor into a unit. And so helped him with that, and then the following year he referred me about $3 million in business.
Wow.
And then the year after that, he introduced me to a couple other people, and it's equated to about $10 million in business that this guy, just running into a guy at traffic court, and throughout all the clients that he's introduced me to, the people who've introduced me to other people through him, because it's really like it's a line, right? It starts there, and then it goes here, and then it goes here, and then that person that you work with goes here, and it works its way down, And so he was like, man, everybody that I know that's worked with you says that they would work with you over and over and over again. And when people say that, it's like, that's why I do this, that's why I do this. And so, really providing that value in a unique way over and over again, and serving every single person just like you would want somebody to serve you. So it's crazy the impact that one person can make.
One traffic ticket.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's huge. But yeah, seriously, I mean, that's how the business works, right? Referrals from past clients, referrals from people that we've served that found value in what we provided. And they have friends and family who want to receive that same level of value. And that's how we've grown our business. It's how we continue to serve more people and expand our reach and continue to do this work that we feel so passionate about.
Yeah. Bring the same value to every client. Do it over and over and over again.
Appreciate all your input, and looking forward to touching base with you guys next week.